This has been bothering me, so I want to talk about it. Nintendo, like everyone has heard, has raised prices on the original Switch system. Now, maybe they just don't care. They're fine with the sell-through rate of the Switch, and they'll say people are chumps that still buy it because they're like, what do we have to lose? We've already sold 150 million, close to 160 million. I don't care anymore. We'll just raise the prices to increase our profit margin. But it really bothers me. As we can see, the Switch OLED, which is the one you should get if you are considering a Switch 1, at least until the Switch 2 came out, went up $50. And it is now $50 cheaper than the Switch 2. Now, I will say, I am pro OLED. I love OLED. But if you're going to buy a new console, buy the Switch 2. If you want a Switch 1, buy a used one. This is what's really frustrating to me, though. The Switch launched at $300. Already, the Switch OLED was overpriced. But that was in 2017. It is 2025. It's been 8 years. They just don't want the Switch to be the best-selling console of all time, even though it is so close. Now, realistically, will it get there? You know what? 6 million more units to beat the PS2? That is totally possible. But it is still BS that they think they can charge $400 for a Switch OLED and $340 for an original Switch that is 8 years old. I know it costs, we all know it costs Nintendo nowhere near that much to produce this. The chip is from 2015. It's a 720p 60 hertz display. It is not expensive. The Switch is awesome, but it's not worth that much money. I don't know why they think this was a good idea, besides just pure greed. It's obviously they're going to be blaming the tariffs. They said market conditions. We know what that means. But you know manufacturing has gotten cheaper and cheaper over time. There is no way it costs them even $200 to make a Switch nowadays, especially because the Switch Lite exists at $200. That's probably closer to the cost of production of any of these things. I will say I'm probably wrong. It'll probably break 160 million, and they can flex because they can still sell it in other countries besides North America, places that have been tapped out of the Switch selling. They can still sell it in other foreign countries at a discounted rate, maybe South America, Africa, other parts of the world that are not in the position that the United States is in. But it is still bullcrap that they say market conditions made them raise the price when they didn't do it to the Switch 2. Now, I'm glad they didn't do it to the Switch 2, and I actually think the Switch 2 is a fair price. The games, probably not, but the Switch itself, the piece of hardware, there is frustrating parts, but it is arguably worth this much. But obviously just get one of the bundles, because if you want Pokemon or you like Mario Kart, these are definitely worth the little bit extra that they cost over just getting the base model Switch 2. But it is still frustrating to see all these companies blaming market conditions for raising prices. Now, I know cost of manufacturing can go up and things like that, but I would argue bullcrap, because this is a 2015 Tegra X1 with 4 gigs of RAM. That's basically a Raspberry Pi, let's be honest. There's nothing quite crazy. Nintendo only succeeds well because they have good ideas and great games, okay? The Wii U had good games, but not enough. and it wasn't a convincing enough idea. The Switch is a convincing idea. That's why it was so successful. So don't get cocky now. It's only been one generation. You still have so much longer to fight this generation, this next generation, for your company to continue forward. I know they're doing movies and everything. They're trying to broaden their IP base, but this is obviously still how they're making most of their money. And to be fair, their hardware isn't where they make most of their money. They make it on the games. As we can see here, they sold 1.4 billion games on the Switch 2. Anything that comes to the Switch 2, they get a commission of. If it's first party, they obviously take all that profit. If it's third party, they're still taking a chunk. Anything on the eShop, they're still taking a chunk. That is how they made their money, especially on Switch. This is by far their most successful console in terms of finances, because the DS is about the same in terms of unit sales, but in terms of software, not even close. That is because it was a shorter lifespan and it was a different market condition. The Switch found a niche that a lot of people really like, and I really like the Switch as well, but they sold well because of their games. The Switch had so many fan pleasers. Everyone loves Mario Kart 8. That was not even a remotely controversial game. Everyone liked it. It looked good, it ran good, it was pretty. Animal Crossing was incredible for the time. I didn't really play it, but I understand its niche. It got the casual, it got the home builders, it got the cozy game people, and it came out right during COVID. You got Smash Ultimate. The thing is, the Switch 2, I would argue, is starting off pretty good. Mario Kart World, yes, controversial, but a Mario Kart game to start, and then a 3D platformer. First party Nintendo, excellent. So they're doing so many things right, but then they released Mario Kart World at $80, and they've released Donkey Kong at $70, and all these new games at $70, blaming market conditions, tariffs, cost of production, all this stuff. You cannot say this when you have sold 20 million units of software already, and your previous gen, which is still selling plenty, made 1.4 billion software sales. Let's do a little calculation here. I don't think it would be hard to say that each profit was maybe around $5. Okay? Because that takes in account of very small profit margins, but also the bigger ones. 5 times 1.4 billion is $7 billion if you only account for $5 of profit per million software sale. Per software sale. $5. $7 billion. And I obviously know Nintendo has made a lot more money than that overall. They're on the up. They're getting a lot of hate, which some deserved, some not. But they're getting too confident with their pricing. I love Nintendo, but Nintendo hardly ever discounts their games too. They are trying to push it too far. I know Nintendo won't listen to the internet people, but this is ridiculous. They just need to drop the Switch OLED to $300, the original Switch to $250, and the Switch Lite at $150. So they can just, get rid of them. Just one last boom before the Switch 2 completely takes over, just to get a couple more units out there. But instead, they're being greedy, and they are choosing to shoot themselves in the foot in every way possible with game prices, with console prices, and with what they're offering. They're just not offering enough like they were with the original Switch. Now, there's still plenty of time for them to change, especially with the Switch 2. And like I said, maybe they just don't care about selling more Switch 1s to the US market or anywhere else where the price has raised, because they're happy with 154 million and they just want to go to the Switch 2. But it is still bullcrap. Don't blame tariffs. You know it costs less than $400 to produce this thing, and most of your money's from software anyway, so why'd you raise the price of the hardware? Anyway, just something I was passionate about. I'll talk to you guys later.